Coming up on Arirang News. Mourners bid farewell to the victims of Monday's deadly car accident after the customary 3 days of guests visiting funeral halls. Meanwhile, the police have conducted their first questioning of the driver. 1,000 patients hold a mass rally in downtown Seoul, frustrated over the prolonged doctors' walkout. This amid senior doctors at Asan Medical Center beginning to reduce non-essential treatment and surgeries. With the KBO League looking to see a record high number of stadium goers this season, more younger people are getting interested in baseball. We look into the trend. Welcome to our 9 p.m. edition of Arirang News. I'm Kim Bu-kyung. It's been 3 days since the deadly car accident in downtown Seoul that took the lives of 9 people. This morning, families and friends of the victims bid farewell to their loved ones. Meanwhile, the police began their first questioning of the driver involved in the deadly accident. Bae-eun-ji reports.
Mourners gathered at a funeral home in central Seoul on Thursday to bid farewell to their loved ones who lost their lives in Monday's fatal car accident. A woman who lost her 54-year-old son tearfully called out his name as the funeral car headed to the burial site. Among the victims were 4 people who worked at a bank near Seoul City Hall. More than 100 of their co-workers lined up outside the funeral home as they mourned the loss of their colleagues. Wearing black, some were seen wiping away tears. The victims also included 2 Seoul City government officials who worked at City Hall. 2 funeral cars carrying them stopped by Seoul City Hall and circled the building before heading to the burial site. The deadly car accident took place on Monday evening when a Hyundai Genesis sedan hit pedestrians waiting at a traffic light near Seoul City Hall. The driver, in his late 60s, has been claiming that his car suddenly accelerated out of control and the brakes did not work. Some initial findings, however, contradict his claims. The police suspect the driver stepped on the accelerator shortly before the accident, as they discovered that the extra brake line was not on, and because they did not find any skid marks at the scene. On Thursday afternoon, the police began conducting their first questioning of the driver. They're expected to ask him in detail about the circumstances of the accident, including his claims of unintended acceleration and why he was going in the wrong direction on a one-way street. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
Amid the prolonged doctors' walkout, senior doctors at Asan Medical Center began reducing patient care starting today. Patients held a mass rally in central Seoul on the same day, calling for doctors to end their walkout. Cha Yoon-kyung has more.
At an emergency committee meeting of professors of medicine at the University of Ulsan, affiliated with the Asan Medical Center, they said that they will take intensive measures to ensure that there is no disruption in the treatment of critical illnesses and emergency care, but begin reducing non-essential treatments and surgeries instead of going on a full-scale strike. On the first day of readjusted medical treatment, the emergency committee predicted that major surgical operations would drop by 29% compared to last week. Hospital management expects there will be no massive disruption since there are about 10,000 outpatient appointments as usual. In response, a group of 92 patient organizations staged a rally in central Seoul on Thursday, calling for doctors to end their ongoing walkout that has disrupted public health services and caused fear among patients. On the same day, Lee Sang-min, the Minister of Interior and Safety, vowed measures to minimize any negative impacts on returning trainee doctors, reiterating that the government will support them. Minister Lee once again explained the necessity of medical reform and urged trainee doctors to return to work. Lee also asked the residents to engage in dialogue to actively explain their demands. The government will announce measures for trainee doctors who have not returned to work in the near future. 차윤경, Arirang News.
After a fierce standoff involving a day-long filibuster, the National Assembly on Thursday voted to pass the contentious opposition-led bill that calls for a special investigation into the death of a Marine during a search and rescue operation amid last year's floods. The ruling party lawmakers walked out in protest during the vote. Our political correspondent Lee Si-yu reports.
On Thursday, the National Assembly voted to approve the opposition-led bill calling for a special prosecution probe into the death of a Marine during last year's flood rescue operations and alleged government interference with a preliminary investigation into the case. It passed with 189 votes for and 1 against amid the ruling People Power Party walkout and protest. The voting followed a day-long filibuster launched Wednesday and an ensuing clash over its end declared by Speaker Woo Won-sik. During the filibuster, the PPP asserted the bill was politically motivated and targeted President Yoon Suk-yeol. The opposition bloc, led by the main opposition Democratic Party, reiterated the need for a special investigation, bringing up allegations that the government and military officials interfered with the initial internal investigation. But the bill was actually first introduced during the 21st National Assembly, also by opposition lawmakers who passed it unilaterally in early May. President Yoon Suk-yeol later vetoed the bill and it failed to pass a revote by the Assembly. The DP then reintroduced the bill as its first legislative goal when the 22nd National Assembly began its term at the end of May. Following Thursday's vote, PPP leader Chu Kyung-ho said the party will not be attending the opening ceremony of the 22nd National Assembly, originally scheduled for Friday. Chu also requested that President Yoon Suk-yeol too does not attend. Meanwhile, a high-ranking official at the presidential office called Thursday's legislative move a violation of the Constitution and a shame to the constitutional history. Lee Si-yu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the economic front, the nation's finance chief says Korea will seek a proactive approach against external risk factors to maintain its export-oriented recovery momentum for the rest of the year. Lee Soo-jin with the details.
The South Korean government is carrying out measures to maintain export competitiveness in the face of global uncertainties. Measures including expanding trade networks, increasing overseas projects and support funds, and following up with state visits were announced during a ministerial meeting on Thursday presided over by Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok. While the economy is showing signs of recovery, with the economic growth projection for this year being revised upwards to 2.6% on the back of strong exports, the minister stressed that external uncertainties remain for the latter half of the year.
Geopolitical tensions remain and global supply chains are being reorganized as major countries prioritize their own interests. The government will thus carefully monitor external uncertainty factors and supply chain risk, while concentrating policy efforts to further strengthen exports for the second half of the year.
Since 2004, South Korea has secured 21 FTAs with 59 countries, behind only Singapore for the number of FTAs, and it plans to continue expanding its trade network by forming relationships with emerging markets such as the Global South as well as key Indo-Pacific nations. As for strategies to win overseas projects, the government plans to strengthen cooperation between governments to further secure large-scale projects. And the Export-Import Bank of Korea, the nation's official export credit agency, will spend 85 trillion won, or around $61.5 billion, over the next 5 years to help companies to win orders in key strategic areas such as infrastructure and power plants. The government will also carry out follow-up measures to state visits, including the most recent to 3 Central Asian countries, by boosting cooperation with them in key areas such as key minerals, energy, and infrastructure. The finance minister added that this is the best time to carry out preemptive measures to combat external uncertainties as exports are showing a robust recovery, and that the government will continue working towards making sure that these measures will lead to boosting domestic demand as well. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, violent confrontations between Israel and Hezbollah continue, with the latter launching some 100 rockets into Israeli territory following the death of a commander. Yoon has more.
Hezbollah says it fired 100 rockets at Israel in response to the killing of one of its senior commanders. The Lebanese militant group said through a statement on Wednesday that Mohammed Nima Nasser had been killed in an Israeli strike in southern Lebanon, later adding that it launched 100 Katyusha rockets at an Israeli military base and another attack near the border. According to the Israeli military, most of the rockets fell in open areas without causing any injuries. Israel identified Nasser as the commander of a unit that operated from southwestern Lebanon, which was responsible for firing attacks into Israel. Sources indicate that Nasser held a similar rank to Taleb Abdallah, a senior commander killed by an Israeli strike in June. That attack prompted Hezbollah to launch some 200 rockets at Israel, the largest rocket attack since the conflict in Gaza began on October 7th. Another of Hezbollah's top commanders was killed by Israel in January. Also on Wednesday, the Israeli government said it is reviewing Hamas's response to an Israeli proposal, which included the release of hostages and a ceasefire. Israel's intelligence service confirmed on Wednesday that mediators in Qatar and Egypt had submitted Hamas's response to Israel. Hamas also confirmed that one of the group's leaders had engaged with mediators positively, but demanded a deal that includes a complete ceasefire. Yoon, Arirang News.
Turning our attention to the UK, voters there are heading to polling stations on Thursday to cast their ballots in a general election that many pundits believe is a referendum on 14 years of the Conservative Party's governance. Choi Soo-young reports.
The United Kingdom is preparing for Thursday's general election. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of the Conservative Party and opposition Labour Party leader Keir Starmer are making their final push for votes.
I understand people's frustrations with me, with our party, but I say this. It's a choice about the future of our country. A choice that is going to have severe consequences for each and every family if we get that choice wrong. Just think what a Labour government with a supermajority would do.
We've now had 14 years of chaos, of division and failure, and the choice tomorrow is to bring that to an end, to turn the page and start to rebuild with Labour.
The upcoming general election will determine the composition of the House of Commons and ultimately the next Prime Minister. The Labour Party is forecast to win by a landslide, ending the Conservative Party's 14-year rule. Recent polls show that Labour has about 40% support and the Conservatives have 20%. On Wednesday evening, YouGov, a public opinion and data company based in London, forecast that Labour could win 431 out of 650 seats in the House of Commons. If this happens, it will be the largest number of seats won by a single party since the first UK general election in 1832. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has appealed to his supporters with strong controls on refugees, such as sending asylum seekers to Rwanda and an increase in defence spending. Labour leader Keir Starmer has focused on a century strategy, promising stable economic growth, wealth creation and unwavering national security. Many voters blame the 14 years of the Conservative-led governments for the cost of living crisis, issues in the healthcare system and the chaos due to Brexit. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
The European Union on Thursday confirmed a provisional tariff increase on imported Chinese electric vehicles. The new tariffs range from 17.4% to 37.6%, in addition to the pre-existing 10% duties. EU officials say this is due to unfair subsidies by the Chinese government that have given them an advantage compared to the bloc's own manufacturers. China's Ministry of Commerce said Thursday it hoped to reach an agreement soon, ahead of the EU's final decision in October. The EU is the largest overseas market for China's EV industry. Koreans living overseas will have easier access to online services thanks to a new identity verification system. The mobile overseas Korean identity verification card is being piloted in selected areas and will be expanded to all overseas embassies. Our Shin explains.
In South Korea, accessing online services such as printing certain documents or accessing online banking often requires verifying your identity, which involves entering a verification code sent via text message. This code confirms your identity based on the name and personal information that's registered with your domestic telecom provider. But sometimes it's not that easy.
People living abroad have had trouble with the identity verification process when using South Korean online services because they don't have a South Korean mobile number.
To address this issue, in collaboration with the Presidential Committee on the Digital Platform Government and the Overseas Koreans Agency, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety on Wednesday launched what's called the Mobile Overseas Korean Identity Verification Card Service.
The government will build a digital platform to make it easier for everyone to use administrative services. We will work to ensure that the advancements in digital technology are not a barrier for anyone.
Overseas Koreans have welcomed the new service as it now gives them to access domestic online administrative services. However, with concerns over limited service availability, the government has pledged to expand the usage.
After setting up a stable system and amending related laws, we'll make the mobile ID cards available for domestic mobile banking services. We'll also enable its use for identity verification instead of using passports at diplomatic offices.
Having to visit diplomatic offices for the initial issuance of the mobile ID cards was seen as an inconvenience.
In the United States, not all states have those offices, so residents may need to travel to another state, which can be inconvenient.
Right, so we're looking into ways to streamline this process. We're also working on enabling overseas residents to obtain online certificates to give them access to South Korean online services using their e-passports.
Starting Wednesday, the service is being piloted at 7 locations, including the Korean embassies in China, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Consulate General in Los Angeles. The service will be available at all diplomatic offices abroad by the end of this year. Shin, Arirang News.
As the country's new first Vice Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, President Yoon has named Yoon, the ministry's current Chief of International Cultural Affairs and Public Relations Office. The announcement came on Thursday, saying Yoon, who's worked at the ministry for the past 30 years, has extensive practical experience and a strong theoretical foundation in cultural and artistic policy, which falls under his new jurisdiction. Yoon also has a PhD in Performing Arts Management from Kyunghee University. The KBO League is looking to see a record high number of stadium goers this season, and its fans are getting younger. Our An Sang-jin was there to find out why.
Screams and shouts echo around the stadium. Any South Korean ballpark will make you want to get up on your feet to join the cheering crowd. Baseball has been known as having a relatively older fan base, with the average fan being in their 50s. But over the past few years, a particular trend stands out. It's the increasing number of younger fans and female fans that come to watch the game.
I think I come here to enjoy the delicious food and cheer with other people. The cheering culture is well developed, so you get to have fun with your friends.
I think people are interested because the cheering culture is so well developed.
I would agree on the cheering culture, but also new TV shows on baseball are trending these days, so I think that also boosts the popularity.
The KBO Korean Baseball League looks set to see a record-high 10 million stadium goers by the end of the season. And according to a major ticket office for the league, 4 out of 10 audience members are in their 20s, which is nearly double what it was in 2019. And more than half of the audience is female.
South Korean baseball is well known for its unique fan culture with cheering squads and a repertoire of fan chants. With the addition of younger fans, it makes the ballpark more dynamic and an enjoyable experience.
Then what attracts this younger age group? An official says there's more to Korean baseball than its outstanding cheering culture.
As we work with more OTT services such as YouTube as well as Instagram, fans get to enjoy more of our content. There are also many content creators that the Korean Baseball League has to compete with, So we plan to develop more sports content that captures not only young fans, but other age groups too.
With the vibrant cheering culture attracting more and more fans, an afternoon at the ballpark looks to be one of the hottest tickets in town. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, the worldwide global warming phenomenon is also taking a toll here in the country, where the average temperature hit a record high for the month of June. According to a climate analysis released by the Korea Meteorological Administration on Thursday, last month's nationwide average temperature was 22.7 degrees Celsius, ranking it the highest average for June since 1973. Although the same temperature was recorded in June 2020, additional climate data put last month in the top spot on record. Seoul also experienced its first tropical night of the summer on June 21st, the earliest in 118 years, according to the KMA.
The rainy season has started up again in Seoul and other parts of the central region. The rest of the country will be under the influence of this rain overnight. In particular, heavy rain of up to 20 to 50 millimeters per hour is expected overnight. As for the amount of rain, up to 120 millimeters in the Chungcheongdo provinces and Jeollabuk-do province, and up to 80 millimeters in other areas including Seoul. As much as 100 millimeters is expected in southern Gyeonggi-do province. This rain will mostly stop tomorrow afternoon, but it will continue until night in northeastern Gyeonggi-do province and Gangwon-do province. Tomorrow, Seoul and Busan will start off at 23 degrees Celsius. Highs will be topping out at 29 in Seoul, Daegu, Gyeongju, and Jeju 33 degrees. Another round of heavy rain will be seen all over the country again this weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Senior doctors at another one of the big 5 hospitals in Seoul, the Asan Medical Center, began reducing treatment and surgeries on Thursday. Under this move, professors say the number of surgeries could be down by 49% and outpatient services down by around 30%. To those without major health issues, this could be just a number. But what about cancer patients in need of chemotherapy or those on kidney dialysis? The fact that 1,000 unwell patients came out onto the streets to hold a rally just shows how worried and frustrated they are. With the prolonged medical dispute meaning more patient suffering, it is time for both the government and doctors' groups to make meaningful progress. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.